My name is Miss Smith. Welcome to Story Time. Today we are going to read a book that's called Dr. DeSoto. Can you say that? Dr. DeSoto. You got it. It's a story about a little mouse who's a dentist. That's Dr. DeSoto. And a fox that he tries to help. Ooh, and if you know anything about foxes, that might make you nervous because then you might know that foxes love to eat mice. So let's find out what happens when a very kind mouse tries to help someone who wants to eat him. Ooh. Before we do that, I want to talk about the letter X. I wonder if you could say the letter X is a consonant. Can you say that? The letter X is a consonant. You got it. The letter X is a consonant, which means we're going to have to use our teeth and our tongue to make the sound. When I make the letter X's sound, I actually copycat two other sounds. I know that letter K says K and letter S says S. When I put them together, X, then I make the letter X's sound. I wonder, can you do it like me and say X, X, X 3 times? Ready? X, X, X. You got it. But of course, this isn't the sign language for letter X. It's a little more tricky than that. What we're going to do is take our pointer finger up and our thumb out. It kind of starts like a letter L, but then you're going to tuck your fingers in. Don't let them touch. Keep them apart, but keep them tucked in. And that is letter X. Can you say it? Letter X. Nice job. Can you keep your letter X and bounce it 3 times as you say the sound X, X, X. Ready? X, X, X. You got it. Let's find out what happens when the kind dentist tries to help the fox. Did you hear it? It's a fox. You got it. Because of course fox ends with letter X. Dr. DeSoto, the dentist, did very good work, so he had no end of patients. That means he had no end of people who would come to him for help. Those close to his own size, moles, chipmunks, etc., sat in the regular dentist chair. Over here, he just has a little tiny chair that they can sit in. Larger animals sat on the floor, while Dr. DeSoto stood on a ladder. Wouldn't that be funny if a dentist had to climb a ladder to reach your mouth? But that's what he has to do for larger animals like pigs. For extra large animals, like the donkey, he had a special room. There, Dr. DeSoto was hoisted up to the patient's mouth by his assistant, who also happened to be his wife. So you can see she's pulling the cords and pulling the chains that will lift him up in the air so that he can work on the patient's mouth from above. Dr. DeSoto was especially popular with the big animals. He was able to work inside their mouths, wearing rubbers to keep his feet dry. That means he could just wear little rubber boots so that his feet would stay dry as he walked around to work on all the teeth. And his fingers were so delicate and his drill so dainty, they could hardly feel any pain. So of course the big animals like to go to him because they say, he can get inside my mouth and he can use his little fingers and his little drill and I hardly feel a thing. Being a mouse, he refused to treat animals dangerous to mice, and it said so on his sign. So you'll see right here at the top it says Dr. DeSoto, dentist, but then underneath it says cats and other dangerous animals not accepted for treatment. That means if you're a cat or another dangerous animal, don't come here. When the doorbell rang, he and his wife would look out the window. They wouldn't admit even the most timid-looking cat. That means even if the cat looked really nice and really shy and quiet, they wouldn't let that cat in because they know that cats like to eat mice. One day when they looked out, they saw a well-dressed fox with a flannel bandage around his jaw. I cannot treat you, sir, Dr. DeSoto shouted. Sir, haven't you read my sign? Because he says, of course, if the fox had read the sign, he would know he can't come up here. He's not a cat, but he is another dangerous animal because he likes to eat mice. Please, the fox wailed, have mercy, I'm suffering. And he wept so bitterly, it was pitiful to see. If he says, have mercy, that means, please, I know you don't usually help creatures like me, but please help me just this once. I wonder, could you do it like you're the fox and you're in pain and say, have mercy, I'm suffering. Ready? Have mercy, I'm suffering. Good. Just a moment, said Dr. DeSoto. That poor fox, he whispered to his wife. What shall we do? Show me what you think they should do. Yes, they should let the fox in, or no, they shouldn't. Because some kids might say, they should because he's in so much pain. Other kids might say, no way, he's a fox. He'll eat them. What would you say? Okay, some say yes, some say no. Let's find out. Let's risk it, said Mrs. DeSoto. She pressed the buzzer and let the fox in. If she says, let's risk it, she means, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Oh dear, this makes me nervous. He was up the stairs in a flash. Bless your little hearts, he cried, falling to his knees. I beg you, do something. My tooth is killing me. Sit on the floor, sir, said Dr. DeSoto, and remove the bandage, please. And you can see he's washing his hands because he's getting ready to climb into the fox's mouth. Oh. Dr. DeSoto climbed up the ladder and bravely entered the fox's mouth. Ooh, wow, he gasped. The fox had a rotten bicuspid and unusually bad breath. If he has a rotten bicuspid, that means he has a tooth that's rotted and dead, and so it's making his breath stink. I wonder if you could do it like the dentist, like the breath is really stinky, and say, ooh, wow. Ready? Ooh, wow. Good. This tooth will have to come out, Dr. DeSoto announced, but we can make you a new one. Just stop the pain, whimpered the fox, wiping some tears away. Despite his misery, he realized he had a tasty little morsel in his mouth, and his jaw began to quiver. That means even though he's trying to keep his mouth open, he wants to shut it because he realizes he has something tasty in his mouth. So he's going, ah. Can you pretend you're trying to keep your mouth open, but your jaw is quivering? Ready? Ah. Good. Keep open, yelled Dr. DeSoto. Wide open, yelled his wife, because of course she doesn't want her husband to get bitten even a little. So I wonder if we could do it like them and say, keep open, wide open. Ready? Keep open, wide open. You got it. I'm giving you gas now, said Dr. DeSoto. You won't feel a thing when I yank that tooth. Soon the fox was in dreamland. Yummy, he mumbled. How I love them raw, with just a pinch of salt and a dry white wine. Uh-oh. And of course we know who he's thinking about. If he loves to eat them raw with a pinch of salt, he's thinking about eating the mice. They could guess what he was dreaming about. Mrs. DeSoto handed her husband a pole to keep the fox's mouth open, because of course they don't want it snapping shut accidentally. That was a good idea to put the pole in there. Dr. DeSoto fastened his extractor to the bad tooth. The extractor is the machine that's going to pull the tooth out of its socket. Then he and his wife began turning the winch, and finally, with a sucking sound, the tooth popped out and hung swaying in the air. Can you pretend that you're turning the machine and the tooth is going to pop out and hang swaying in the air? Good. I'm bleeding, the fox yelped when he came to. Dr. DeSoto ran up the ladder and stuffed some gauze in the hole. The worst is over, he said. I'll have your new tooth ready tomorrow. Be here at 11 sharp. The fox, still woozy, said goodbye and left. On his way home, he wondered if it would be shabby of him to eat the DeSotos when the job was done. He's wondering, would it be wrong of me to eat the animal that's trying to help me? Oh, this really is a wicked fox. After office hours, Mrs. DeSoto molded a tooth of pure gold and polished it. Raw with salt indeed, muttered Dr. DeSoto. How foolish to trust a fox. He didn't know what he was saying, said Mrs. DeSoto. Why should he harm us? We are helping him. Because he's a fox, said Dr. DeSoto. They're wicked, wicked creatures. That night, the DeSotos lay awake, worrying. Should we let him in tomorrow? Mrs. DeSoto wondered. Once I start a job, said the dentist firmly, I finish it. My father was the same way. But we must do something to protect ourselves, said his wife. They talked and talked until they formed a plan. I think it will work, said Dr. DeSoto. A minute later, he was snoring. So it sounds like they have a plan to protect themselves, but still to finish the job. The next morning, promptly at 11, a very cheerful fox turned up. He was feeling not a particle of pain. That means he didn't feel any pain whatsoever in his mouth, not even a little. When Dr. DeSoto got into his mouth, he snapped it shut for a moment, then opened wide and laughed. Just a joke, he chortled. If he chortled, it means he kind of laughed when he said, just a joke. Can you do that like him? Ready? Just a joke. Yeah. Be serious, said the dentist sharply. We have work to do. His wife was lugging the heavy tooth up the ladder. And would a tooth really be heavy? Probably not. But for a little mouse? Yeah. Oh, I love it, exclaimed the fox. It's just beautiful. Dr. DeSoto set the gold tooth in its socket and hooked it up to the teeth on both sides so that it won't come out. The fox caressed the new tooth with his tongue. That means he used his tongue and felt the tooth back and forth. See if you can pretend to do that. Caress your tooth with your tongue. Good. My, it feels good, he thought. I really shouldn't eat them. On the other hand, how can I resist? Oh, so he knows he shouldn't eat them, but he still thinks he's going to do it anyway. We're not finished, said Dr. DeSoto, holding up a large jug. I have here a remarkable preparation developed only recently by my wife and me. With just one application, you can be rid of toothaches forever. That means we only have to put it on one time and then you'll never feel any pain again. How would you like to be the first one to receive this unique treatment? I certainly would, the fox declared. I'd be honored. He hated any kind of personal pain. You will never have to see us again, said Dr. DeSoto. No one will see you again, said the fox to himself. He had definitely made up his mind to eat them with the help of his brand new tooth. Oh, that is wicked, that he's going to use the new tooth that Dr. DeSoto just gave him to eat the dentist? To eat the one who tried to be kind and show him mercy? Oh, goodness. Dr. DeSoto stepped into the fox's mouth with a bucket of the secret formula and proceeded to paint each tooth. He hummed as he worked. Mrs. DeSoto stood on the ladder, pointing out spots he had missed. The fox looked very happy. But if Dr. DeSoto is humming while he works, that makes me think maybe he's happy too. Maybe he's not worried. Pretend you're Dr. DeSoto and pretend you're painting each tooth and just kind of humming like you're not worried either. Like, ready? Good. When the dentist was done, he stepped out. Now close your jaws tight, he said, and keep them closed for a full minute. The fox did as he was told. Then he tried to open his mouth, but his teeth were stuck together. Ah, excuse me, I should have mentioned, said Dr. DeSoto. You won't be able to open your mouth for a day or two. The secret formula must permeate the dentine. That means what I just put on your teeth has to soak all the way in order for it to work. But don't worry, no pain ever again. Oh, but if the fox can't open his mouth, that makes me think maybe it wasn't a secret formula that would get rid of pain. Maybe it's just glue. Maybe they just glued the fox's mouth shut. That would be so funny. The fox was stunned. He stared at Dr. DeSoto and then at his wife. Can you pretend that you're stunned, just like the fox, like you're so surprised, and look at Dr. DeSoto and his wife and just stare at them for a second? Ready? Good. They smiled and waited. All he could do was say, "Thank you very much." Will you do it like you can't open your mouth? Thank you very much. Ready? Thank you very much. All he could do was say, "Thank you very much," through his clenched teeth and get up and leave. He tried to do so with dignity. That means he tried to do it like he wasn't embarrassed. He tried to just stand up like, okay, I'm ready to leave. Then he stumbled down the stairs in a daze. Dr. DeSoto and his assistant had outfoxed the fox. That means they tricked the creature that was going to trick them. They kissed each other and took the rest of the day off. I love that story about how a tiny little mouse and his wife could outfox the fox, how they could trick the fox. Okay, before you go, see if you remember sign language for letter X. Remember, we started like an L, tuck your fingers in, and say letter X. Ready? Letter X. You got it. And will you pretend, as you make the X sound, like you're a fox walking down the stairs and you've been outfoxed and you're going to go x, 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 x. Ready? X, 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 x. Yeah. The fox was outfoxed. That was so funny. Okay, good listening today. See you next time. Bye.